Okay, now I know we can see you. Hopefully you can hear me, Karen, right? I can hear you. The only question is, can anybody else hear either one of us? And if it sounds okay. So if the three people watching can please let us know if they can hear us. Uh, and I'm gonna see if I can make this look less weird. Let me make my face a little bit smaller. Oh, you're. I'm not sure if you can see the Yahoo. Okay, so Ben can see. Okay, let me just make my face not look so weird for everybody other than you. Uh, Uh, I have become, although I have to tell you, this has kind of been um, part of my thing with Paul Vanderklay. I keep on telling Paul, I think too many of us are trying to figure out the technical aspects. Oh, they can't hear you. Let me see if I can fix that. Ooh. Hmm. I can hear you, but they do not seem to be able to hear you. Let me see if I can fix that somehow. That's what my voice meter is supposed to. Could you say something really quick? Yeah, I see why that's not working, and I'm going to see if I can figure out how to fix that. um, hmm, you know what? Google is my friend. Uh, uh, and yeah, so one of the things I have been trying to tell, um, one thing I've been saying to Paul Vanderklay is that um, the fact all of us seem to need to figure this stuff out by ourselves is actually something that really shouldn't have to be because speaker. Yes. Well, no, I actually think. Okay, now try saying something.
Well, okay, so I'm hoping that people can hear my voice and I'm talking. And if somebody could let us know whether they can hear me or not, that would be great.
I think that should work, hopefully. Ben, did you hear Karen right there? We are also on a time delay. um, so my idea, yes, they can hear you.
Okay, so before we get underway, then can you allow me to record on my side so that I have
Oh, sure.
yeah.
Yes.
That's in the,
security. Is it?
I always forget where that is. I think it's, you open up, where the heck is that?
I think I just did. Try it again.
Okay,
Recording in progress.
there we go.
There we go. Okay. So now you have a recording and I have a recording. And we have the audience and people can hear us and people can see us and things are much better than they were 5 minutes ago.
It's good to be here with you, Jacob.
I'm glad to have you, Karen. You don't need an introduction because way more people watching this are watching this because they know who you are than are watching this because they know who I am. So I should introduce myself to your audience.
Well, I would love that. Actually, I'd love to hear your story because I don't know your backstory.
Aha. So where do I begin? I'm Jewish.
Well, I mean, how did you get tangled up with this little corner?
That's a really good question. So when I went through a absolute life crisis and had lots and lots of mental health issues and stuff like that, and about 10 years ago, I started coming back online, and during that time, I I ended up in Jordan Peterson groups, and I got involved kind of with IDW stuff, and through IDW stuff, I found out about Paul Vanderklay, and I was very involved with Eric Weinstein's Discord server, and there were a lot of people who were both on Bridges of Meaning and Eric Weinstein's Discord server, and started coming on Bridges of Meaning. A bad actor named Bad Stats, who I believe is currently also trying to destroy the Discord server from Paul's Discord server, was actually able to destroy Eric's community. And I kind of felt like Paul, as opposed to Eric, had the skills to build a culture which is able to withstand that type of assault. And so I shifted my focus from Eric to Paul. And I also had what I think of as a bit of a revelation, so there was like a very large shift in my theology. And so the past 2 years have kind of been a ride, and the ride's been going, the ups and downs have started becoming even more like the ride's been picking up speed, let's put it that way. And here I am. So I'm going to let you ask whatever questions, because actually the reason I wanted you on my channel is I think you're so excellent at asking questions. And I think
the questions always arise from the content. So I have to have the content before I can get the questions. But the question that occurred to me when you were talking about your backstory is, what was it about Eric Weinstein's Discord server that attracted you in the first place? What was it about his content and his Discord server?
I will tell you, but Ben said, Karen, can you give a quick introduction of yourself too, please?
Oh, I can do that first, and then you can tell me about Eric Weinstein's Discord server. A quick introduction is kind of hard because I've had a life where I've just done a lot of different things, and there are several episodes on my channel that give some of that backstory, and I can give you links to those. But in short form, I ran into Jordan Peterson just before he did the C16 thing, maybe a few months before that, because I was online one day and I saw this link on YouTube, 10 rules for life, not 12 rules, but 10 rules. And somebody had, this was before his book came out, or he had even named that he was going to have a book called that. Somebody had put together a compilation of clips of Jordan Peterson speaking in different situations and pulled out what they considered 10 rules that he thought were important. And I was listening to this guy and I thought, wow, here's somebody who speaks truth, doesn't mind getting in there, and obviously cares for people. And I decided that what I was going to ask for my birthday that year was that my family would sit down and watch that clip with me.
Mm-hmm.
So I made everybody watch Jordan Peterson's 10 Rules for Life. I think it was a half-hour video or something. And that got me interested in him. And so I started following other YouTubes and looking at some of his university lectures. And then I had surgery that fall and I discovered his biblical lectures, and I was able to go back through the whole series of biblical lectures while I was recovering from surgery. And then I read Maps of Meaning, which took forever because I'm not as smart as he is. And I realized that there was this amazing key to Maps of Meaning inside my head that had been there for 20 years based on what I had learned through art and creativity, that opened up that whole book to me and helped me to understand what he was going after. So I've been following him ever since and seeing his progress, but then I've also been following my own idea. And that's part of why I started the channel, so I could talk to scientists and philosophers and see whether there's any validity to my own concept.
So I actually want to let you lead the conversation, but that's because I think you have the type of outlook which needs to. How familiar are you with Ian McGilchrist?
Very.
Good.
Okay. I've read Master and His Emissary at some length and spent quite a bit of time with it. I have not read his new book. I popped in here and there. It isn't, for some reason, it's not as compelling to me as his first book, but that's also probably because I have a lot of other books I'm working on at the same time, so I can't focus in on it like I did the first time around.
Well, just for the people who are listening, Ian McGilchrist is a neurologist, I believe. He writes about the functioning, particularly of the first and the left and the right hemisphere. Not that the left and the right hemisphere are, and he at length he's like, yes, I'm not doing all the wrong left and right brain stuff, but he's doing all the right left and brain stuff. And what he explains is that there are certain functions of that this divide is essential. There's a reason why we have a physiological divide between the right and the left brain. That that the right brain is. So the example I liked the best that he gives is an animal that's eating, right, needs to at the same time be manipulating whatever it's eating and capable of, if there's a lion's roar behind him, being able to process that. And so what we think of as ourselves, our attention, that which lets me pick up this glass and particularly, move it around, right, is in fact is in fact being guided by something that's even more important, which is my right brain, the master, which is going to tell me, stop focusing on this when a lion roars behind me, right? And this is not a dirty glass, it's just a bad glass. Just want people to know that. And so I think, and something he brings out very well is that our society seems to have become very focused on the left brain when it should recognize the superiority and the importance, the fundamental role of the right brain more. And you're an artist and you ask wonderful questions and you have great capacity to do the type of stuff that I, actually being very left brain, am rather bad at. And I think part of our society not recognizing the role of people like you is that we will say, oh, well, who was on, I'll compare you to Joe Rogan. I don't listen to Joe Rogan to listen to what Joe Rogan has to say. I listen to Joe Rogan when he has somebody on his show that I want to hear what they say be expounded upon and drawn out and understood, and right. And in doing that, we completely devalue Joe Rogan's skill and capacity to be that forum, and if you'll excuse the symbolism, to be the feminine background, right, in which the arena in which the agentic, the masculine, operates. And we've become so focused on the agent that we discount the arena.
Yeah, well, exactly. You've pinpointed exactly where I disagree with Ian McGilchrist.
Oh, okay.
Because you just pinpointed the masculine and feminine, which is my own perspective of the two hemispheres of the brain, not masculine and feminine in the way that is typically used in the world today, but with the idea that there are two partners in a marriage, and the two partners are necessarily different, and you need that opponent processing in order for the greatest creativity to take place, and that the right brain is more and McGilchrist has said this before, that the right brain is more focused on the arena. You know, you take your bird, the left hemisphere of the bird is focused on getting that piece of grain out of those rocks on the ground. How does it focus on that? Very intent focus on that one thing. Very agentic, grasping. That's the left hemisphere. But the right hemisphere has this broad focus, exploratory focus, always aware, always alert. Because, I mean, let's face it, mothers, especially mothers of little babies, when they're vulnerable, the mother has to be aware where the danger is. And the mother always has to be conscious of being protective, right? So there's this broad focus. So it has always seemed to me that it's not the master and his emissary, but it's a marriage. I think it's somehow some sort of a category error to make the right brain the master, because what he says basically is that only the right hemisphere can know what is outside of the brain. The left hemisphere has no access to the outside. So the right hemisphere is taking in what's out there, and then the right hemisphere filters what it takes in and hands over to the left hemisphere what the right hemisphere determines is necessary, and then the left hemisphere processes it, builds things with it, stacks things up, takes them apart, all the scientific stuff. And McGilchrist's argument is that where we've gotten messed up in our culture over the last 300, 400, 500 years is that the left hemisphere needs to send that back through the right hemisphere again for another filter
Mhm.
to fill it out, to flesh it out, to give it that, to give the arena its due, let's say. But that's also the way a marriage ought to work. Right? A marriage isn't a 50-50 proposition. It's 100%, 100%, or maybe 110%, 110% proposition. And the two have to, they have their opponent moments, and then they have their moments when they come together, and it's in that coming together that the creativity happens. So after the oppositional part, the coming together is the creativity, and they're both necessary, which is why I think the two hemispheres of the brain are more like a marriage than they are like master and his emissary. But then I would also say that that may be at a more archetypal level,
Mhm.
because if you're talking about the feminine as the eternal feminine, there may be, I mean, you can make the argument both ways, that the eternal masculine, that the eternal feminine arose out of the eternal masculine. You see Eve coming from the rib of Adam, right? But then there is also some way in which the womb of the world
Mhm.
is the eternal feminine. So I mean, I think we have all these very beautiful and mysterious analogies, and we can never get at it exactly. But to me, it's more like a marriage, which has told me that marriage is a fundamental basis of all creation. Yeah. So anyway, that goes into a lot of things about dualities and binaries and polarities and all those things, which we've talked about a lot.
I don't want to be too reactive to the live stream because I want to talk to you. There's a lot more people watching this than ever watch my channel, so you're very popular. But Chad, Chad the alcoholic, and I aspired to be Chad the alcoholic when I grow up, did comment, and he said, "Can't wait to listen to this. I'm at Awake right now." And he took the time to comment. Blessings to both of you. And I'd love to talk with Karen if she's interested. Holla. And Chad, do you know Chad the alcoholic?
I've seen a few of his videos, and yes, I'd be delighted to talk to him.
Chad,
he's welcome to come over to the Meaning Code, or I'll go to wherever he is.
Chad is one of the very special people in our corner. So I am a big believer in the necessity of hierarchy and the importance of hierarchy. And I talk about Jethro a lot from the Bible.
Mm-hmm.
And how he said to Moses that, you need to set up a hierarchy. And Chad is one of the people in our milieu. I am trying to, as much as I can, push up, partially because he has an incredible humility which comes from his experience as an alcoholic. And if he ever loses that humility, I'm gonna have to cut him back down. But because of the because of his humility and his wisdom, he is definitely somebody I think needs to shine in our environment. And one of the things, so I got to go to the Chicago meeting with Paul
Wow.
Vanderklay.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually made a 3-week trip out of it. And on the way there, I visited with Pastor Tanner. I don't know if you know him. And on the way back, I met up with a lot of people, and it was an absolute pilgrimage. I usually come back from my vacations absolutely like I need a vacation from my vacation. I have never been so exhilarated in my life. And so
yeah, I'm on one of those weeks right now where I'm just recovering from a vacation that I was on. Completely exhausted.
So one of the things that I was inspired to was to do more conversations, and so Griswold Grimm is in the comments, and he says, "This is quote making Karen listen to me live." So I'm sorry, I don't mean to make Karen listen to me, but I do have to say, again, I think part of the genius of Karen is that Irenic thing, because I listen to I can't listen to all your content. I'm sorry. It's like it's impossible to listen to all the content in our corner of the internet.
It certainly is.
And that's why I think the conversations are the most important part, because I realized I'm making a lot of I'm sorry I didn't visit you, Ben. I would have if you were on the way. Um, I'm like, I'm making a lot of content, and you know what? That's all nice and well, but what we really need is conversations. And so we had actually scheduled this from before, but I've been trying to do a lot of conversations. People who watch my channel, like I've been doing a lot more conversations since I got back from Chicago. And that really also makes me really appreciate, like, when I do watch your content, like, again, it's the Joe Rogan thing. It's like, well, if she's got a good guest on, it's excellent, because the content is Karen like painting a picture. And what an artist does, and I got this from Ayn Rand, and it's one of the things she said which are smart. Not everything she said is wrong, people. One of the things she said is, she pointed out in the Romantic Manifesto, which really stayed with me, was her definition of art. And she said that an artist is somebody who exposes by limiting. Just a photographer takes a picture, right, and decides what to take a picture of, right, and removes elements from what we're looking at. And by removing elements from it, in fact, that's Michelangelo. He's like, oh, I didn't sculpt the statue. I took off the parts that didn't belong, and so I do think, like, yeah, that is an art we don't appreciate. So, like, Andrea with the bangs, why are her discussions so good is because she asks what she calls dumb questions. And it's like, no, they're not dumb questions. they're important questions that make things stand out. And I think that's part of actually the genius of Sam as well. Sam Adams, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is when he discusses with I'm not going to get involved with the chat. The T word on here is Trinity, and that's the word Ben is saying. Don't say the T word. That's Trinity. Sam's discussions with John Vervaeke, and his discussions. I mean, I love his discussions because Sam is actually capable of doing both of that. He is able to. He both gives great content. Oh wow! I did not. Zoom has changed their thing, so now like one-on-one meetings have time limits. Is that true?
Well, if you're not a paying member, there is a time limit.
Oh wow, there used to not be.
So, but here's what we could do. Yeah. I can send you a link.
Okay.
And we can continue on mine, and you can still keep streaming.
Okay. Right? So yeah.
And so keep talking, and I'll send you a link, and we'll try to make this as seamless as possible.
Okay. And So Sam, because he has such interesting ideas of his own, it's pretty much always good to listen to him. At the same time, he also has the well, Grimm says, now ask her something she can answer with a sentence or just leave an opening.
Well, here's the deal. In order for me to get onto my Zoom account, I'm going to have to end this, and then
Okay.
I'll send you a link very quickly.
Okay, and we'll be right back.
And actually, you've asked me a lot of good questions that I can answer in a sentence, but I just have not wanted to interrupt you. So, because I think you're saying important things.
Oh,
okay, I'm gonna say goodbye, and I'm gonna send you a link, and then we'll continue.
Okay. Okay, sounds good.
Recording stopped.
So we will be back. Yes, we should be able to hear her when she comes back. I get that link and then. And Tyler says, can you ask Karen about getting featured in Kurt's TOE competition? I have no idea what Kurt's TOE is. Just going back. Yeah, I'm gonna try not to let the live stream chats distract us too much. I think TOE shouted her out for getting Levin first. Who's TOE? Am I missing something? And I have no idea who Levin is either. Yeah, like people are asking. Okay. 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 So let me.
You should be able to record now.
Well, I'm gonna have the recording from StreamYard, so that's fine.
Okay.
Okay, you should be back. Just say something so we can find out.
Okay, well, I was glad you were talking about Sam's conversation with John Vervaeke because
Yeah. Okay, let's see if people actually heard you. They were asking about theories of everything. Calling.
Recording in progress.
You.
Theory of everything, Kurt Jaimungal.
Oh, Kurt Jaimungal. Yes, I know.
Yes, he could have knocked me over. Absolutely. I mean, I was watching that video, and just because I watch Kurt quite often, and the title of the video was 40 underappreciated YouTube channels.
Mhm.
And I was watching along, and on 5 minutes and 21 seconds, he says the meaning code.
Wow.
Absolutely could have blown me away. Wow. I have no idea how I got on his radar. It maybe was the video that I did with Michael Levin and John Vervaeke, because I know that Kurt has had Michael Levin on before.
I don't know who that is, Michael Levin.
Oh, he is a synthetic biologist who works with limb regeneration. He's discovered that cells communicate with each other through bioelectric signaling.
Oh, right. I remember Paul talking about like building those tiny like
The little xenobots, yes.
xenobots. That's the
Yes.
yes.
But even before he got to the xenobots, he got to the place where he realized that, and this is something that's been known for a long time. This was one of the mysteries about DNA, is that DNA has in it all the information about the resources that are needed to build an entity, but there's no information in the DNA about where to put the parts. So they've always wondered how do the undifferentiated cells in a baby, for instance, know where to put the eye or where to put the arm.
Right.
And so he started working at the frog level. Well, he started working first with planaria, and then he moved on to tadpoles. And he designed something called a Picasso tadpole, where the eyes were in the wrong place and the heart was in the wrong place, and maybe there was the head was a little off kilter or something, like a Picasso painting, because he wanted to explore whether or not there was a certain, because in a tadpole the eyes are in a certain place, but then when it becomes a frog the eyes move either up or down on the head. Did they have a certain number of clicks that they moved to get to that spot? And if so, then if you make a Picasso tadpole, you're going to end up with a Picasso frog. But he didn't. He starts with a Picasso tadpole. He ends up with a perfectly normal frog with everything in the right place.
Oh.
How did that happen? So then he started exploring that, and he started looking at these cells when they're at this point of having to differentiate and go off and build whatever it is they're going to build. And he noticed that there were electrical signals flashing. And he began to think, maybe that's a language. Maybe they're talking to each other.
Right.
And so he discerned that there's some way that an electrical signal, there's something called gap junctions in cells, and these electrical signals travel through these gap junctions, can tell these cells, and this is the way he talks about it, blows me away. I mean, he's a materialist, but he still talks about it this way. He says, so this group of undifferentiated cells, they go over there and they build an eye. They just execute the subroutine. They don't know what steps to take to build an eye. They just execute the subroutine. And this batch goes over there and they execute the arm subroutine and they put on an arm. So he thought, what if I take a frog that's had its limb amputated and then generate that electrical signal in that spot? What's going to happen? Lo and behold, the cells go and build a leg. So he has a company called Morphoceuticals where they're working on this as a consumer enterprise, I guess, where eventually they're going to be able to regenerate human limbs and using these electric signaling.
Wow.
And that's what he's working on. So he started building the xenobots because he's interested in the whole idea of chimera. And hopefully he's interested in chimera because of some benevolent idea that is going to help mankind rather than just the desire to build monsters. But the idea, I think, is that if you can build a chimera, then you can also, regenerate limbs and eyes and so forth on actual animals. So that's who Michael Levin is. And I think that's probably why Kurt Jaimungal noticed my channel. But getting back to Sam and John Vervaeke, the thing that really struck me about the way Sam and John Vervaeke did a conversation is you often hear Vervaeke talking about dialogos and how you can come up with something better if you're actually trying to have a conversation. But Sam is just so good at realizing that, in the sense of making that real. The way that he does the conversation. Actuating it, yes. The way that he asks questions and the way that he responds, even though Sam has a certain way that he's thinking about things, he still opens up doorways so that they have places where they can kind of gather together and talk. And so I really appreciated that about his.
Yeah, that's something that I have noticed increasingly. So I am a very I am a very oppositional person by nature, to the point where I can tell you exactly what I disagree with someone about. I can't tell you what I have a very hard time remembering what I agree with. Right? It's like, that's how I remember someone is, we disagree about this, we disagree about that. That's like that's how I categorize the world, right? And what I have started, and I don't have a great way of explaining this, but what I use is, when you're trying to get somebody from A to Z, you can sometimes jump from A to B, C, D, maybe F, maybe G. You can't jump from A to Z, right? You have to start connecting with them at a point where their knowledge starts connecting with where you're trying to go, right? So if I want to talk to somebody, so my big thing has become what I call secured distributed cognition. And if I start talking to somebody who doesn't even know what the word cognition means and what cognitive science is, right? And I start talking about secured distributed cognition, the person's going to think I'm speaking gibberish, because I am. There's no reference, there's no, or so I actually I am very political, and part of my little crusade in this part of the internet has been for us to be more politically active. And that's one of the things I've been telling Bern Powers, is I've been trying to goad him and Paul into being more politically partisan, because I think it's important, not because I think it's as important as what we're doing here, but because I think it's an important outgrowth of what we're doing here.
Could I clarify with you what you mean when you say that? Are you saying that, because I think all of us in this little corner probably have very different political viewpoints. So
we do.
If we all get more political, then we would be having more probably oppositional political conversations, but there might be some benefit in doing that because we might be able to come to some conclusions. Is that the kind of thing you're talking about?
No. And I understand exactly what you mean. And I think that's the wrong type of political. But what, in effect, what I am advocating for, I believe that Jordan Peterson was absolutely correct in getting involved with the Daily Wire. And I know that this is very controversial in our corner of the internet, but I think he's right, not because I want everybody to become a Republican. So as I was growing up, so I grew up in Los Angeles, I always thought of myself as a conservative Republican. And I thought of myself as a very conservative Republican. I used to tell people, I am the most conservative person you will ever meet. And I meant it. Like, when I turned 18, when I was in high school, I started a Rush Limbaugh fan club. That's what I was known for. And when I turned 18, the first thing I did was join the Republican Party and become a card-carrying member of the Republican Party. And what I have started to recognize much more so in the past year or so than I had ever before, I'm not a Republican at all. I'm left. I'm probably rather far left. I'm not conservative at all. I'm very liberal, which if you had told me that, I would have laughed at you.
Are you talking classical liberal or are you talking progressive liberal?
That's the thing. It's like Dave Rubin, right? The idea that Dave Rubin or even Jordan Peterson or James Lindsay or Tim Pool or any of these people are conservative is laughable, right? And we can call ourselves classical liberal or whatever. We're actually, what I've started recognizing is no, I'm on the left. I am liberal. I'm just sane. I'm sorry, I have to put it that way. And I don't want to be a conservative and whatever. But and as a Jew, I am 100% against making any World War II analogies whatsoever, if at all possible not to make it. There was a point at which in Nazi Germany, the people on the right had to realize, no, it's not about left and right anymore. This has gone way too far, and we need to get involved and be helping those people that generally are opposites and move forward after we've defeated this menace. And I think part of a political projection of the culture and the religious strata that we have here is for us as people who are actually, like, I'm not looking forward to a day when there's a one party Republican rule. No, that's like ridiculous to me. But I am looking forward to a day when the political powers that are ruling the Democratic Party today have been completely destroyed, and that there is a party, if it's called the Democratic Party, that's fine. If it's called a different party, but there is some other second party, and part of that has to be for the people who are naturally part of, and I've tried to make this point to Eric, not that I talk to Eric very often, but I consider him a friend, and he knows who I am. Like, I talk to him maybe once every few months, send a text or something. But I do consider him a friend, and he knows who I am. And this is one of the things I've been saying is like, you know what, Eric, I realize you're a Democrat, but there's a point at which you have to do precisely what Dave Rubin and Tim Pool and James Lindsay and everybody else has done, which is recognize, as much as I detest Donald Trump. Let me explain to you how much I detest Donald Trump so people understand this. I remember being a teenager and watching him have an interview with Barbara Walters back. I mean, I think the two of us are probably the only two people who actually remember Barbara Walters in this corner of the internet.
Abawawa.
Oh yeah. He was having an interview with her where he was proudly bragging how his mistress and his wife had bumped into each other in I think it was Aspen or Vail or something, in a restaurant, and had gotten into a physical fight. And he was on national television bragging about this. And this is my first memory of this man. And it was the most disgusting thing I have ever seen in my whole life. Well, not
Well, so you must have been pretty sheltered then, because it's gotten a lot worse since then, don't you think?
Oh,
in terms of what has been seen on national television since then.
Yeah, but yes.
Well, so let me just interject here for a second, because when you talk about the two political parties, I couldn't agree more, because we don't really have two political parties anymore. I mean, the safety of our nation depends on having diverse political views. We can't have just one political view, or then we end up,
At least two parties is the minimum.
Yes, at least. But there used to be a time when there were two political parties, and both of them sincerely cared about thriving for American people, and they just had different viewpoints on how to achieve that. But I think we've come to a place where the extremes on both ends of the party have hooked up like the Ouroboros, and so you have tyranny, and then you have freedom. Mm-hmm. And I think we all need to get down in the freedom part of the circle. That's my opinion.
I have to tell you, I think this both sides thing is completely. I think it's completely wrong. I don't think,
because there aren't both sides, isn't that? I mean, that's what I'm saying.
The fact is, I am far more scared of the far right than I am of the far left, because the far right will always be far more violent and far more capable of doing horrible things because of the nature of the right.
Hold on a second. I agree with you that the far right is violent and capable of doing horrible things, but did you see what happened in Portland on the far left?
Oh, no. And I want to explain that. I think that the rise of the far right that we have is completely in reaction to the far left. And that's what happened during World War II as well. This is, again, like one of the things that I've been harping on as a Jew, is the incredible ignorance of what happened. Like, we talk about World War II all the time. And when I say to people, did you know Joseph Goebbels was actually fined for anti-Semitic speech? They had laws against anti-Semitic speech in Weimar Germany, and Goebbels was censored. Guess what? The censorship helped him come into power. What are we doing now? We're saying, well, wouldn't you want to censor the Nazis? No. Like, no. I know what happened during the Holocaust. No, hell no. Like, that's the example of why you wouldn't want to have censorship. Antifa, like, punch a Nazi, right? We don't want World War II again. Antifa started in Weimar Germany before the Holocaust. They got into street brawls with the Nazis. And those street brawls, any competent social scientist will tell you, was part of what helped the Nazis come into power, right? Yeah. So we're like completely just repeating history, but and the general, like, in mainstream culture, a lot of people are going to think I'm crazy. What are you talking about? Antifa helped the Nazis come into power? Yes, they did. Censorship helped Joseph Goebbels become famous and gain political power? Yes, they did. And so when I see, and especially, again, as a Jew, and I hate saying as a Jew, but like, when I see the Anti-Defamation League and the ACLU, who were both started by Jews, supposedly in attempts to tamp down anti-Semitism, doing things which they must know cause anti-Semitism. Censorship causes anti-Semitism. So when the ACLU, which knows this and was founded because of this, you remember the Blues Brothers thing about the Illinois Nazis? You remember that?
Well, I know who the Blues Brothers are, but no, I don't know anything about the Illinois Nazis.
So there's in the movie, there's this part where they're driving through a bridge, and so there's a reference to the Skokie Supreme Court case, and that whole thing, and it's a funny scene from the Blues Brothers movie. But so we know where where censorship leads, and we know where allowing Nazis to march leads, which is people look at them and they're ridiculous, and everybody, like, it reduces Nazi marches reduce the number of Nazis in the world. We know that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and looking at the history of the rise of Nazism, it was that Hitler got thrown in jail is what made him a hero. I mean, he never would have been anything if he hadn't been thrown in jail. So political prisoners always end up being heroes, and it's a stupid move, you know.
Have you read Mein Kampf?
No. No, I always avoided it assiduously. That and Marxism, I always avoided assiduously. I was not at all interested. But I went to college during an era when they were still very intent on teaching us about the horrors of the Holocaust. Yeah. And I had a father who was involved in the kind of the operation that went through Germany in 44 and 45 to release prisoners from the concentration camps. And I know that my dad would always get so furious whenever somebody, and you know, back in the 60s and early 70s, people would get on TV once in a while and they would say, oh, the Holocaust never happened, and I've got all this proof. And then my father would just want to throw a shoe through the TV because he was there, he saw it, he knew. And so I'm very familiar with, and I used to read all these books about the Holocaust, and yeah, I'm very familiar with.
My thing about Mein Kampf is it's a book that only the Streisand effect could make famous. I want people to read it.
What's the Streisand effect?
Oh, you don't know the Streisand effect? Okay, no. So the Streisand effect is Barbara Streisand. Somebody took a picture of one of her estates, and she got so upset about it, she sued him, the photographer, for privacy violations and stuff, and she tried to censor it. And it became one of the most famous pictures. Like, it was a picture nobody ever looked at until she sued. And so this became called the Streisand effect, when you make something famous by trying to suppress it. And Mein Kampf, I mean, it's a stupid book. If you want to read it, please do. And like, it's just, censoring Mein Kampf is about the stupidest thing I can imagine doing, because it's like, anybody who's dumb enough to fall for it, it's like, you know, go ahead, read it. It is a self-refuting idea as far as I'm concerned. And so that's why, for me, like, this issue of the censorship is such a huge issue. And I on a YouTube channel did you watch Burns' latest 6-hour epic, how we got here? Do you watch Burn Power's channel?
I've seen a few of them.
I can't hear you.
I've seen a few of Burn.
Are you muted?
No.
I'm getting no sound.
That's very strange. So
I hear nothing.
Well, let's see if we can figure out what the problem is.
No, I was always able to hear you. It was so her audio is working for the stream and just not for me. Okay, so everybody else can hear you except me. So this must be me again. Just a second. Try saying something?
Okay. I have seen some of Burn Power's episodes, but not all of them.
I'm trying to figure out what it must be. Just a second.
Is it possible that
No, I'm still not hearing you. It must be on my side because it is feeding your audio to.
working on that, I can keep talking?
Everybody can hear you but me, Karen. I'm sorry. You know what? I'm gonna have to restart my computer. Let me restart my computer and then we'll get back to this in a minute. Sorry about this. You want to type what you're saying? Oh, okay. Well, no, they won't be able to hear while I restart. So give me a second. I'll be right back. Okay, people. So hopefully we will be back online within seconds. I am hoping. Okay. Oh, I see. Okay. Okay. I can. Hopefully, the people watching me can also hear you. Let me. Okay. Yes. Go ahead. Well, okay, that's the thing. I think from our perspective, even from a religious, where we're going. Oh, you guys, they cannot hear you. Just a second. Let me fix that. Even from, Okay, they should be able to hear you now. Say something really quick.
Political.
Okay. I think from our perspective, because of what's going right now, I want people like Paul Vanderklay to do what I had to do. And I realize it goes against every grain in his body, but yes, endorse Trump. If the Republican candidate in 2024 is Donald Trump, which I hope it will not be, I want people like Brett Weinstein and Byrne Power and Paul Vanderklay to say, you know what, this is the type of yeah, people can hear you. This is the type of situation in which we need to band together and say that the type of shenanigans that took place in the 2020 elections, and let there be no doubt, regardless of, forget everything Trump said. What happened in the 2020 elections was completely beyond the bounds of anything that should be allowed. And I'm not talking about the stuff that Trump said. I'm talking about the stuff that was in the Time article, I'm guessing you've heard, about the effort to secure our election and the censorship that we actually know about, including the stuff that happened with Hunter Biden's laptop. This was not a free and fair election in the United States. And what happened with Brett Weinstein, I don't know if you know what happened with his Unity 2020 initiative.
Mm-hmm.
Like when that got shut down by Twitter, the only reaction Brett Weinstein could reasonably have is to say, you're doing this so I don't, because you think I'm trying to help Trump win. Guess what? Now I have no choice but to endorse Trump. And he's right. He had no choice, but he would have been right if he had noticed, you know what, if you're not going to let me do this, if Twitter is not going to let me run my 2020 campaign, Unity 2020 campaign, my only choice is endorse Donald Trump. And I realize that's not what he wants to do. But there are times when, based on principle, right, I would never draw a picture of the Prophet Muhammad. There's no reason for me to do that. But when people are getting killed for drawing pictures of the Prophet Muhammad, my only response can be in solidarity to draw pictures of the Prophet Muhammad. Not because that's what I want to do or that's what I think is right to do but because at some point, because of the underlying basic understanding of what the rules of the game are, you have to stand up. You have to say, no, this is too far. The people on my side, the people I usually agree with, have gone way too far, and we have to move to the other side. And that's why I want to see a political expression of where we are here, where the IDW types say, we're going to join up with and this is what brought the IDW down, is the people who were not willing to do that. And that's what's going on with Jordan Peterson and the Daily Wire. Jordan Peterson's like, I have to join the Daily Wire. He's right, he does. And anybody who's criticizing him, I'm not saying they shouldn't criticize him. I'm saying they misunderstand what's going on, and they're working against their own interest. Because if you want to stop the world from actually swinging way too far, we have to help moderate the ridiculousness that we're seeing.
Well, so the underlying thing that's underneath all of that is the issue of courage, I think. When you were talking about, who was it? You've talked about a lot of different people here. Somebody you brought up. Oh, Chad the alcoholic.
Okay.
what's underneath his humility is courage. Because, C.S. Lewis always said that courage is the virtue that it is underneath every virtue, because every virtue, when it comes to the sticking point, you can only make progress if you have courage. And I can appreciate Chad's what he might have learned through alcoholism, because it's not that dissimilar to any other addiction. And I've had a problem with sugar for many, many, many years. So most of the time I stay away from it completely, because if I start eating it, then I really have a problem. And sometimes it's enough just to eat some white flour, just to have like a taco or something like that. That's enough to set me off, because it has an addictive quality in my life. And the courage that it takes to say no to that impulse is the same courage that it takes to say no to this foolishness. But that courage is only developed in the fire of using that courage at the sticking point of every single thing that happens in your life. It's something that you have to practice every day at all times, or you lose it. And I think as a nation, we've just lost courage. I mean, I've watched this happen over my lifetime, where courage has just evaporated. This is why we make such a big deal about our soldiers, because they go out and have courage on our behalf, because we don't have any courage. And then when they come home, if the society is such that the society is saying, oh, bad soldiers, then we all just fall in line and say, yes, bad soldiers. Even though we're the ones that sent them out there, we're the ones that let them be courageous on our behalf, but we can't withstand the judgment of our neighbors. And so we fall into line and say, yes, bad soldiers. And that's exactly, I mean, you talk about Donald Trump. To me, that's exactly what happens. I did not vote for him the first time around.
Me neither.
Okay. I should have, but I didn't. I lacked the courage to do so, even though I believed from observing him during the primaries, I believed that he was probably the only one that had the courage to take on the political correctness that was ripping us apart. And I was correct. He had the courage to do so, but he didn't have the, what would you say, the inner stamina to withstand the onslaught that came at him. And so he became extremely defensive in ways that I felt were very damaging to him and to his brand. I watched him the first 2 years he was in office, and he did so many good things, none of which was ever covered by the news media, but he put it all on YouTube. So he would invite a bunch of people from the medical world to come and have a conference with him. And he put the whole thing on YouTube, and he sat there and he listened to them. What is it you guys need? How can I help you, develop better medications? How can I help you so that we can have better healthcare in this country? And he listened to them. Then maybe the next week he invites in a whole bunch of people from the manufacturing industry. How can I help you? How can we make things easier for you so that you can hire more people? What can we do to make this country stronger? And then he listened to them. He did very good things, but he just got this constant onslaught from the news media and from all the people that hated him. And then, very much like Jordan Peterson, when he got on Twitter, he got defensive. And, Twitter has this way. I find Twitter stealing so much of my time, because I think to myself, oh, I'm just going to get on Twitter because that's a good place for me to find people to talk to on my channel. And before I know it, I'm involved in a long, very interesting discussion with somebody on Twitter. But what that means is your brain is stolen from you all day long while these tweets are coming at you, interrupting you every 10 minutes. And then you have to come up with an answer. Even though I only follow really cool people and I don't have any negative interactions on Twitter. And even so, it steals my time. So that's what happened to Trump. That's what happened to Jordan Peterson. I think Twitter is the downfall,
Well,
every.
Greg says, I have hope post Elon. I don't know if Elon is actually going to end up buying Twitter, but I thankfully had the courage, hopefully, to tweet Ellen Page is a woman, and so I am not deleting it, and I don't have to worry about Twitter anymore.
Oh, you mean they canceled it?
Of course they did. How dare you? How dare you say Ellen Page is a woman? How dare you?
Well, I'm very vulnerable to authority, so I think I would be sick for days if I got canceled. So it'd be better for me to just quit.
It's up to you, but I will challenge you to go ahead and tweet Ellen Page is a woman, because if you cannot say that on Twitter, then what's the point of being on Twitter?
Well, I've never looked at Twitter as a platform for political statements or.
It's not about political statements. The reason you're not allowed to say that on Twitter is because it's true.
Yeah.
I could say Karen is a man. That's the reason. And if you're on Twitter, and the rule of Twitter is you're not allowed to say things because they are true. What are you doing on Twitter?
So that's interesting. So you could say Karen is a man on Twitter, and probably nothing would happen to you.
Right. I mean, supposedly that would also be misgendering, but the fact is, I mean, you could say Karen is a space Martian. They're definitely not gonna, they're definitely not gonna do anything about that. It's the truth value of what you're saying.
Let's have Grim say that on Twitter and see what happens. You hear me, Grim? Just Karen is a space Martian and see what happens. So when Jordan Peterson said that about Ellen Page, he kind of went far beyond saying that, right? I mean, he said something that was.
But it was only.
Some might say it was crudely put.
It was only the misgendering. That's what got him suspended. That's the rule, right? Because you're allowed to.
Was it the misgendering or was it the dead naming?
Same difference. But I think misgendering more than the dead naming, because ultimately, I mean, you have to be able to mention that, Bruce Jenner, Caitlyn Jenner was Bruce Jenner, right? How do you say that sentence, right? But the whole thing, it's like, these are rules which we as a society, and I don't care why, like, it doesn't matter if it's the type of thing I would say, if we're not going to stand up for this free speech thing. And I'm not sure I agree with you about the courage thing, because I actually think, Paul Vanderklay is very courageous in many ways. Brett Weinstein has been incredibly courageous in many ways. And that's one of the things so he has courage, but he was not willing to say, if you shut down Unity 2020, I'm going to endorse Donald Trump, because that's the only thing I can do, is say to everyone who follows me, who would be voting for this third-party candidate, our only recourse now is to endorse and fully go for Donald Trump, because there are times when you have to stand up be willing to die for the right of other people to do things with which you disagree. And if you're not willing to do that, right? We are, I feel like I'm watching a slow motion train wreck that has been going on for at least 6 years now.
Well, so this is the thing, Jacob. This has been going on in my life, this has been going on for at least 45 years that I've watched it happening.
You've noticed it a lot faster than I have. Although I have to say, the reason I thought I was a Republican is because I thought I was a Republican because I thought, oh, I must just be conservative. I'm not conservative. I'm just sane.
Well, I mean, this is a very deep, complicated question, and that's one of the reasons I've been looking.
Hold on, I can't hear you again. And if this is,
you must have bumped something.
This is.
Did you bump a button?
Yeah, they can hear you.
So I think
you know what? I have an idea. I have an idea, and it's going to be a weird idea, but it will work. I am going to turn on my own live stream on my other computer, and I am going to listen to you speak. And there's going to be a 3-second delay between us, but that's better than what's going on right now. And there's going to be a 3-second delay between us. The only thing is I have to make sure that I am the only one who's listening to myself like that. I have to make sure.
The 3-second delay is pretty interesting. We get to hear it twice. So there you are.
Okay. Now I'm listening to you on a 3-second delay like everybody else on here. I'm sorry.
Well, that'll give me time to finish my sentences anyway. So can you hear me now?
Yes.
So,
I can.
So we will. Okay, so I'm going to approach this political issue in terms of. I said this is something that has been going on in my life for at least 45 years because I first started getting involved with politics back in the mid to late 70s. And during that time, it was not dissimilar to what we're seeing today because the economy was starting to fall apart. There were gas shortages. The stock market was going through extreme ups and extreme downs. And it was a very scary time. And during that time, I started studying a lot of history, a lot of economics, and trying to understand what was happening. And as a result of that, I ended up stumbling into some conspiracy theories. And these conspiracy theories got me very frightened because it seemed as though there were people that had some power that was beyond anything that I could fight back with. And so I got politically involved. I wrote letters to the editor. I helped candidates. I thought I can make a difference. But then one day I stumbled on the Aspen Institute for Humanistic Studies. And the Aspen Institute for Humanistic Studies at that time was putting out a lot of material about how to produce good global citizens for the new world order. And Aspen Institute is still around. people still go there and speak. It's a high-end, up in the mountains event for wealthy, smart people to go and listen to each other. I think Jordan Peterson has been there. A lot of people have been there. But back in 78, 79, 80, when the Aspen Institute was talking about developing good global citizens for the New World Order, one of the things that they said in one of their monthly newsletters, back in those days, you get them printed out. They would be not online. It was really interesting time back then. So I had ordered their newsletters and I was getting them on a monthly basis. And one of the things that they said was, we have as our goal to capture the hearts and minds of the school children of America. Well, at that time, I had a 9-year-old daughter, and I said, I don't want anybody capturing my daughter's heart and mind. That just seemed wrong to me. And then I looked at all the things that I had done to try to make a difference, and all my research and all my fear. And I threw up my hands one night and sobbed myself to sleep and said, if there's a God out there, you have to do something about this. I am obviously not big enough to manage this. I don't have any answers on how to fix this. So if there's a God out there, you got to do something. And it was through that prayer over the next 2 to 3 weeks that I had a number of synchronicities that led me to church, led me to stumble upon a church where they had a book that they were giving away that day, Secular Humanism in the Light of the Holy Scriptures. And I said, wow, this is exactly what I need. Secular humanism was the Aspen Institute. The Holy Scriptures, I didn't know anything about, but I read that book and I went, okay, I don't like this secular humanism thing at all. So I must want the Holy Scriptures. And that's what got me reading the Bible. That's what got me seeking a way to come to know this Christ that this book was talking about. So it was actually the political upheaval and the manipulation of some people in power that brought me to a place where I recognized my need for God. So I've always been thankful for that. But then right after that, I ended up getting elected to the legislature in Iowa. And then that gave me a lot of insights as to how the two-party system works and the negative side of both parties, because I went in as a Republican, but I discovered that the only difference between the two parties when they're in operation, at least at the legislative level, is that the party in power wants to stay in power and the party out of power wants to get into power. And everything that they do is dedicated to that proposition. So if you come in as an outsider, as Trump did, as some, I think, who is that outsider from Texas everybody hates? Ted, you all know who I mean. Ted Cruz, they all hate him. But he came in as an outsider. And if you come in as an outsider and you're courageous and you speak up, yeah. If you're courageous and you speak up, then you're going to get slaughtered. And man, oh man, the news media went after me with a vengeance. They called me every name in the book. You're an archaic anachronism of an ancient age. She's a bimbo. They did every unflattering interview that they could possibly do. They did everything they could do to destroy me. So I'm very familiar with how the political system works, but I've also felt through the years that you have to work through the political system somehow, or you can't have any influence at all. So I think it's a very complicated thing. And I think it's especially complicated for people who, we're at a stage right now where, Scott Adams talks about the 2 movies on one screen. That means that the people on the left and the people on the right are looking at the same series of events, but they're seeing an entirely different world. so you could ask someone like Eric Weinstein or Paul Vanderklay to make a political decision in another direction, but it would be extremely complicated for them because everything inside their brains is wired to see events in a certain way. Now, I actually tend to see Donald Trump with a certain amount of almost affection, because he reminds me of my father's generation. But I don't think that a lot of people would ever see it that way.
So sorry about the 3-second delay is making it impossible to actually talk with you. But and now I'm forgetting what I wanted to say. You were saying that you got involved in the politics. Now I can't remember what I wanted to say. This is gonna kill me. You were saying you got involved in the politics. What were you saying right now? I'm sorry.
Oh, the last thing I said was that our situation right now with the polarization that we face is that the people who might disagree with us politically see the world from an entirely different filter. So they're not even seeing the same world that we're seeing.
Now I remember. Okay. I think what Adams gets wrong is he's seeing us as atomistic individuals. He thinks that what we think is inside our brains. And the real fact of the matter is, listening to myself is making me lose my train of thought. The real problem is that distributed cognition is real, and that our mind is not contained within our skulls. We think in community with the people around us.
Mm-hmm.
And so we interpret everything we see in community with people around us. And that's why we have the split screen and so much of the split screen, because our communities are disjoint. And there's a lot of people who seem to think that we can have an amicable divorce, that we can somehow live together while interpreting things so differently from each other. And I don't think you can have an amicable divorce. And it's really important that we start integrating our communal sense making, our distributed cognition becomes secure again, so that we aren't it's like having two eyes and not having your brain actually coordinate between what the two eyes are seeing. And I think that's incredibly dangerous.
I've had a personal experience of that. I had LASIK surgery about, oh gosh, it's probably 10 years ago now. And before I had the LASIK surgery, I had contact lenses, and I had one lens for near vision and one lens for far vision. Because before that I had bifocals. And so anyway, typically they make one eye near vision, one eye far vision. They choose the dominant eye, and then I can't remember if it's left or right, but whatever the dominant eye is, that's what he did for the contact lenses. When the surgeon did the surgery, he made a mistake and he switched my eyes. So he switched my far and near eyesight with the surgery. And I couldn't see. Everything was blurry. It was like being blind. And it was terrifying. I went through, it got better little by little, day by day, but it probably took me a full 6 months before I got my full vision back, because it took my brain time to rewire those two ways of seeing the world getting flipped like that. I think that cognitive dissonance does the job a little faster for people who who get red pilled or black pilled or blue pilled or whatever color pill they get. I think that typically goes a little faster for people, but it still takes time to get past the disorientation. Now, one of the good things that came out of having my eyes disoriented like that was it changed my style.
What I would say about the red pilling.
Hold on one second. It changed my way of painting because I couldn't see clearly enough to make things specific. And so I became much more abstract. So now I'm finished.
So what I would say about the red pilling, I think that what people call red pilling is actually when we notice that our cognitive distortion, when we notice that our distributed cognition is failing us, we become disoriented and we become incredibly suspicious and conspiratorial because we don't know how it's failing us. And we actually start to try to think for ourselves. And I think that's, if you haven't watched my conversation with Coronius Focus, which was recent, I think it's one of the best discussions I've had.
Okay, I'll do it.
This is going to drive us crazy with the 3-second delay, and I know exactly what the problems are, and I can't even listen to myself while I'm listening to this. You know what? It's been a little bit over an hour. I wanted to have a much longer discussion with you, and I do want to have a much longer discussion with you, but I think there's something in the universe saying let's try to figure this out a little bit better. I do want to have you back on the channel again, and we need to continue this discussion, and we can, and hopefully I'll have all this stuff figured out. But I do have to say, StreamYard is incredibly powerful. I've become kind of a evangelist for it, because it allows you to let people on and interact with your with the live stream. And unfortunately, like, I had to do a lot of stuff to make this work, but and yeah, it doesn't work with Safari, which I didn't know before today, unfortunately. But I think you might want to give it a try. I
tried to put Chrome on there so that I could download Safari onto Chrome, but I can't get Chrome to download on my iMac either. So maybe if there's a techie guy out there that wants to have a call with me and walk me through getting Chrome onto my iMac, I'd be happy to talk with you.
So what I saw was Opera also works, and I believe Opera is the one people use on Macs. So you might try Opera.
Okay. I'll try it. Sounds good. Let's do this again sometime.
Okay. Yeah. I will talk to you later, Karen. Thank you for the discussion.
Signing off.
Okay. Oof. Um, so let me see if I can. If okay. There's a lot of people watching. Unfortunately, this didn't work that great. If people want to, if people have comments and stuff, I will stay on for like another 10 minutes. But I'm actually going to try to start my Isaiah stream early so that hopefully I will be able to finish it quickly and maybe be able to get on EA Dawa afterwards. I don't know if they're going to have a stream today. If they are, I would like to be able to get on there. Okay. Quickly, like only a 5-hour stream. Not sure what you're talking about, but yes. Oh, you mean my Isaiah stream? Well, yeah. I mean that's the point of doing it. And today I am going to be doing Isaiah 27, which actually is going to be pretty quick, I think. Um, Isaiah 28. Sorry. So I'm actually going to queue that up in case anybody's going to be on. It's how long? It's only 29 verses, so yeah, 28. Some of my streams are quick. Sure. You can. So I'm gonna be on here for another 5 minutes. So feel free to ask right now. Thank you very much. I have to make dinner and go on my evening stroll. Catch you on the flip side. Maybe. Yeah, I doubt very much he's going to lean on my work. Yes, the Talmud references the Bible. Safaria has great linkages between Talmud and Bible. Um, you can, if you go, they even have a visualization. Go to Safaria and look at their links. I don't know if it's possible to download their links, but they've hyperlinked basically the entire Bible with like rabbinic literature in ways that is amazing. Um, amazing, absolutely amazing. So. Okay, I'm gonna end this stream and then we will talk later.